What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Vital Pursuit podcast. We are joined tonight with a very special guest, my beautiful wife, Cassie. Cassie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, you kind of live here, so, easy person to have on. So, for those of you who don't know, we are T-minus 48 hours, 72 hours.
Yep,
40 hours. Popping out another kid.
Yes.
So that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
You ready for that?
We're getting there.
Yeah. One day at a time?
One day at a time.
Yeah.
I'd like to sleep 2 more nights.
I would like to sleep 2 more nights. It might be the last 2 nights of sleep we get for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, scary. Scary. So yeah, we're scheduled to have an induction on Monday, so that'll be exciting. I don't know exactly when this will come out, so that may not mean anything to you, but that's the plan for right now. So yeah, so something I started in between the last 2 podcasts is asking all my Instagram followers to submit some questions for the guests, and then I get to pick which questions I think are worthy, I guess, of being on the podcast. There's only 2, so it was easy to pick those 2. But so we're going to start with those before we get into anything else. So the first question for you, Cassie, my wife, is from Trent.
Oh, gosh.
Good friend of mine, the redhead. Trent said, and I quote,
I'm nervous.
Yeah. What drugs was she on the day she decided marrying you was a good idea? I'd like to try them.
No drugs.
No drugs? Okay. Drug-free, Trent.
Yeah.
Okay? Drug-free.
Yeah.
Trent's one of my...
not to do drugs.
Yeah,
as a kid.
we all were. Some listened, some didn't. Trent is one of my best friends for clarification, but he hates everything I do in life, so it's just the way it is. But love him to death. Okay, second question is definitely... We're going from one extreme to the other, so just hang on. That's the way this podcast is going to be. But this is from Kaylee, one of your best friends.
Okay.
And Kaylee said, what are your main tips, observations of how to keep your marriage healthy during the first year postpartum first baby?
Ooh.
That's
loaded.
right. And we're going to talk about some more of that later, but I feel like you at least have to give a semi-answer to this now. And then we can go more in depth later.
Well, I think I would say it's not easy, first of all, because there's so much you're learning in that first year of, having a newborn and a child. It's a huge learning curve. I mean, everything shifts in your life and all your priorities, your relationships. As far as the marriage piece goes, I think in the beginning you're just in the trenches for a long time, few weeks, few months, just depending on how easy the baby is and work and all of that. And I know we definitely felt some friction, the first couple months just because it was such a huge change. But I think just the little things of common courtesies and finding ways to, I guess I would say, turn toward each other, which is something that I've learned. So the little things that don't seem like big things end up being the bigger things because they add up. Mm. And it's not always the pomp and circumstance of an expensive date night or, couples getaway. Sometimes it's just,
refilling the toilet paper.
Yeah, refilling the toilet paper the right way.
Okay, there's not a right way.
Unloading the dishwasher, since I know you hate doing that.
I do hate doing that. It's the worst.
Trying to vacuum, do the little things that I know mean something to you.
Sure.
And I think vocalizing my appreciation for what you do, knowing that it's a lot to take on as, working full time and then trying to care for us and keep up with just the demands of a family. So, yeah, I would say finding ways to turn toward each other and vocalizing appreciation, I think are big for us.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it's really important, like you said, those little things become massive things. And I think that's definitely something that probably is even more of a thing you would relate to, of letting a lot of little things build up and then it becomes a big thing, and then when there is a big thing, all those little things come rushing in during the same discussion slash argument. It's like, well, I'm mad at you because you did X today, but I also have Y and Z that you didn't do last week that I wish you would have done, and then it just makes, everything more complicated. So
Right.
yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. So cool. Yeah, great answer. Okay, so I guess this is only the second person I've interviewed, but we kind of did an introduction for Tommy, so I didn't write out an introduction for you, but I know you pretty well. So, pianist.
Oh gosh.
That's such a great word. I love pianist. Pianist.
Pianist?
It's pianist, right? Like a pianist. Pianist?
I would say pianist.
Okay, pianist.
Pianist, like peony is a flower.
Yeah, I know.
So pianist.
Okay, pianist. Mom. Athletic shopper. Very, like, you're a...
Athletic shopper?
Yeah, like you're a athlete when it comes to shopping. Like, that's your sport.
Okay, sure. I'll take that.
Yeah. Heavy hitter when it comes to shopping. ER nurse. Mm-hmm. Level 1 trauma. Pretty big deal there. Charge nurse back in Ohio. Mm-hmm. Right?
I did do that in Ohio.
Yeah, charge nurse. My wife, most importantly. That's a big deal there.
Big shoes to fill.
That's a big deal there. So yeah, pretty amazing human being. So I guess one thing that I know everybody is going to want to hear, and that I kind of want to hear too, would be, let's just kind of start at the beginning a little bit, and quick, where you grew up, a little bit of childhood, stuff like that. We don't have to go crazy deep into that with you. Most people know you here, but then let's talk about how we met. I think that's something everybody's going to want to hear from your perspective, because I think most people have only heard that from my perspective, and yours is quite insightful, and maybe not what you would think. When you look at a guy that looks as good as me, it's hard to imagine how that actually went. But yeah, where'd you grow up, Casserole?
So I grew up in South Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
The hole we live in now?
Yeah. I guess initially I was in Greendale for a little bit, and then we moved to my childhood home, which was in South Milwaukee. And I was raised there for the majority of my life with all my 4 siblings. I'm one of the oldest of 5. And then my parents moved back to Greendale. I want to say it was like 2 weeks before I left for college. So, and that's where they still are now. And then I went to Pensacola for college in Pensacola, Florida, which is where I met Drew.
Wow. Everything changed.
Yeah. That's where I got my bachelor's degree in nursing. Decided to move back to Wisconsin and worked for a year, paid for our wedding. And then we got married in August of 2018. We moved back to Ohio for Drew's job. Mm-hmm. And then, we lived near the Dayton area for about 3.5 years. And then relocated back to Greendale right after we had Sadie, which was in the beginning of 2022. And then that's where we are now.
Perfect. So now we just got to go back and talk way more about how you met Drew.
How I met Drew.
Do me a favor. Scoot that mic just like an inch closer to your face for me. Perfect. Bingo. It's got to be like obnoxiously close. Sorry.
Okay. I think initially...
Welcome to Moe's.
Yeah.
For those of you who know, Moe's is a burrito joint in Florida. And when you walk in, was it Monday? $5 Monday?
Yeah.
Monday Moe's?
It was Moe's Monday.
Moe's Monday.
Yeah.
You go get a $5 home wrecker, which lives up to the name. And when you're a broke college student, $5 big old burrito,
Yeah.
all you can eat chips.
Yeah, chips and salsa.
But they always yell, "Welcome to Moe's" when you walk in the door.
Right.
All my Pensacola people here are gonna
freak out over that.
Drop back in time, but so yeah, Moe's. Walk us through what happened that magical day.
I think I was there with Anna.
It was. Anna. Yep.
I don't really remember a lot other than you were there with Dylan.
Well, naturally. Yeah.
Which you guys are probably there every day.
Basically.
I mean, I saw you there with Dylan, but that was really it.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't really much of an interaction.
No fireworks, nothing.
Which we weren't really allowed to interact off campus.
Yeah, right.
Which is another story.
Yeah, we'll get into that someday.
We're still in therapy over that.
Yeah, lots of therapy.
But anyway.
No initial fireworks, no explosions, nothing. I didn't change your life.
To be fair, not much gives me fireworks in life. I'm just a pretty even keeled, I would say.
We wouldn't say boring
person,
but we would say very even keeled.
Yeah.
Without calling you boring.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Okay, perfect.
So that was probably like our initial, I think, first interaction, right?
Yep, that was it.
Because that was before the 5K.
Yeah, right? That was it. I went back to my life. You went back to yours.
Yeah, and then we, our school did a fundraiser raising money, and I think it was for like missions or something.
Right.
And I didn't have anyone I was planning on running it with, but like everybody on campus was doing it because it was held on campus. Right. So I just...
Pause. I guess drop back. At Moe's, I thought you were hot. That was my takeaway. And then I ate my burrito. But anyways, continue.
In that order?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, right about yeah. Exactly.
So didn't really have plans to run the 5K with anyone specifically, and saw some of my friends.
But God had plans.
It was Dylan and Haley.
Once again, naturally. Yep.
I think Aaron Conley was there, maybe.
He was close by for sure. I'm sure we were all pretty close by.
Anyway.
But I was with Dylan and Haley that night.
Okay.
Third wheeling.
And I must have been saying hi to Dylan or something. Which is how did we really connect the dots there?
I'm probably going to remember this differently, naturally, because that's what I do. But I remember walking out onto the soccer field behind the dorm there, because there was that big soccer field. Right? Yeah. And it was like you were standing in the middle all by yourself, and there was just an open ring around you. And it's me. And I was walking with Dylan and Haley, and I was like, holy shit, Dylan, it's Moe's girl. And he was like, huh? And I was like, it's Moe's girl. And he's like, that's Cassie. And I'm like, yeah, Moe's girl.
She has a name.
And there was a quick conversation. Excuse me. There was a quick conversation to the effect of, she's alone. You're hopelessly alone. Why don't you go talk to her? And, well, I went and talked to you. That's what I remember. I remember I came up and asked you if you had anybody to run with.
Yeah.
You were like, no, I'm alone. And I was like, oh, perfect. You want to come with us?
Much of what I remember is you talking nonstop.
Yeah, I do that. Okay. I do that, so I have a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to talk while you're running?
Well, I am a runner now, and I will say it's difficult. But I was not a runner.
I don't know how you did it.
Well,
it was only a 5K, so it was only, a couple miles, but...
Which I was dying.
I just remember, wow, this kid can talk.
Yeah. It's a gift.
And I'm just trying to, run.
Yeah. Away from me, some would say.
I don't know if I would go that far, but... So, yeah. That was, I guess, our first, true getting to know each other interaction.
Yeah.
Pretty sure you told me your entire life.
I do that sometimes.
In 3 miles.
Yeah, that's actually the only time I can think about doing that to anyone. I've never really done that to anyone. I don't really like telling my life story. But definitely did though. Remember that vividly for some reason. Yeah.
So
And that was it. You pretty much forgot about me. And what about your life?
Yeah, and I think you went home for the summer.
I mean, before that, a quick note. The next morning, I was talking to my mom outside of the gym, and she was asking me how my week had been, and I said it was great. I did this 5K last night, and I ran with this girl that I met, Cassie, and she was like, "Oh, really?" Now, I had met a few girls, so she wasn't super surprised by that, but I made the statement that I was going to marry this one, and she laughed, and I said, "Okay, we'll see." And
here we are.
Here we freaking are.
You know, to be fair, that night we met was like 11 years ago.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Because it was April of 2014.
Oh, it was like right now. Well, it's May, I guess, but close.
So, yeah,
wow,
11 years ago.
It's like we planned this. It's cool.
Who would have thought we would be doing a podcast 11 years later?
Well, I wouldn't have. But
yeah, I wouldn't have either.
I didn't plan to be alive, but here we are.
Wow.
Here we are. She's the same then. So, yeah, you made an impression on me. Clearly, I didn't make that much of an impression on you. So, I went home for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And
I stayed there the summer.
You stayed there because you were, working your way through college. You sold your soul.
Yeah.
So, I just went home for the summer.
Right.
I was coming back still, pretending to be in school. And I was mowing grass over the summer and vividly remember spending all of my time riding a lawnmower, getting a suntan, thinking about you, and thinking about the fact that you didn't want to think about me most of the time. But I think you were thinking about me. You just didn't want to. So walk us through that a little bit.
I mean, I think we did keep in contact quite a bit. I mean, all we really had was like texting. I don't know that we really called each other much.
I don't remember a lot of. We did phone call a few times.
I mean, this was 11 years ago.
Yeah, I mean I think there was some phone calls.
Okay.
I mean, I remember the fateful phone call that ended your life and started ours together was a phone call. It wasn't a text.
Which one was that?
Oh, you don't remember that? Jeez.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Yeah.
Should I?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, it may, it's part of this.
We can blame it on pregnancy.
Yeah, pregnancy brain. That's the thing. So.
Did I break up with you or something?
Well, it's complicated because we weren't really together. So.
We weren't officially together, but I was sayonara.
Yeah, well.
Maybe I did.
You were, the same old, well, it's not you, it's me. I just, I'm ready to get married. And you're like, well.
Well, I probably, because I met you 3 seconds ago.
Right.
And you were younger than me.
Yeah. I was. I like older women.
You were a freshman.
Yeah. Whoop-de-doo.
Almost a sophomore.
Anyways.
And I was
you had some preconceived notions about me because I wasn't 7 feet tall and was significantly thinner than I am. And I'm still thin, but I was very skinny then.
Yeah. You had a glow up since then.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. But anyways.
We all have, I think.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I think. So what I remember is you were pretty much no, I'll be your friend, but honestly, we need to stop talking so much because it's just making things harder. That's what I remember. And I was devastated.
Was this in school or over the summer?
No, this was over the summer.
Okay.
And I was devastated. Big time.
Okay.
And so then I got mad at you and started talking to another girl, which we're going to just leave that all unnamed. But
yeah,
I started talking to another girl that I met over that summer. And yeah, that was all bad. But anyways, 100% just to try to piss you off, which didn't work.
Probably because I didn't even know.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. I remember this one guy at my parents' church who will remain nameless as well, but he was asking me if I had met any girls or whatever. And at the time, we were still kind of texting a little. I'm like, yeah, I'm talking to 2 right now. He's like, you're going to lose them both. And I was like,
wow.
Yeah, right. Well, it almost happened. But anyways, so what I remember then is we really stopped talking for a long time. And then we were never really together, but I guess I kind of broke up, if you want to use that word. We weren't together, so it wasn't really breaking up, but I ended communications with the other girl I was talking to and was just not talking to anybody and was just being a single guy. And from what I remember then is I had like sent you actually I think you texted me on like a Sunday. It's so weird. I remember like these snapshots of this. Sorry, my allergies are terrible right now.
Yeah, I was just saying the same thing. Might need Kleenex.
Yeah. We don't have those here. Low budget studio. I remember sitting in my parents' church. I remember sitting right next to my mom, my dad on the other side, and my freaking Samsung, the blue one, the slide, Intensity 2. Samsung, if you know, you know. The Samsung Intensity 2 with the keyboard. That sucker started buzzing, and I'm like, oh, well, that's weird. Nobody ever texted me during church, because nobody was talking to me, because like the guy in church said, I had lost both of the women I was talking to. So I flip it open, and sure enough, it's Casserole. And I'm like, huh. And you were just like, hey, good morning. Hope you have a good day or something. And I was like, we're in.
For me?
Yeah. And I was like, we're back. Like, I'm in.
You definitely remember more of
in there, like, swimwear. Like, I was stoked. I'm like, she missed me. I'm back. So I was all jacked up. And then we started talking more that day. And then by the end of that day, you and were like back into, we can't do this. This is too much. And then we stopped again.
Oh.
Is what I remember.
Wow.
For like a couple weeks. And then...
Did you come on too strong?
Probably. Have you ever known me not to come on too strong to everything in my life? I decided to start a podcast like 4 days ago.
I feel like I'm going to let you take the blame on that one.
Yeah, totally. Right. I mean, you were also a little, it's even hard to get a read on. You had some hurt and some trauma.
Hard to get?
No, it wasn't even that. I wish I could say it was that. I think you just had a lot of walls to break down, and I had to break them down, and I think I did that. And we'll get to that, because clearly you don't remember this, but I do, so I'm just going to tell the story now. So, then like 2 weeks later, this part's a little weird, but I was taking my clothes off in my parents' basement, because that's what I did, because I mowed grass for a living, so I was always dirty. So I came inside, and I was taking my clothes off downstairs, and I would like put on a pair of basketball shorts and go upstairs to shower, because my clothes were always filthy. And I was like in the process of doing that, and my phone rang, and it was you. And I answered, and you were like weeping, like, to use the biblical word here. Like, you were upset. Yeah.
What was I upset about?
Well, you were like, and basically, long story short, you didn't say much. You were like, let's do this. And I was like, what are we doing exactly? And you were like, I want to try this. And I'm like, I get a little more from you. And you're like, let's date, or let's be serious about, like, I think we can do this. And I was just like,
wow.
Yes. And then you gave me this, I prayed about it, and I'm nervous, but it feels like it's the right thing to do, and I want to give it a chance. And anyways, I was jacked out of my mind. And then after that, I just came back to school, and I don't know. Like, I remember coming back to school then, and it was like we had been in love for 4 years. Like, apparently the last...
I do, remember seeing you, as you came back for the first time.
You were very excited to see me.
You were, I think we were in front of, the dining.
It was in a yellow polo.
Were you?
Yeah, light yellow. We were in the library.
Oh. I'm remembering something different, but...
I have a picture of it somewhere.
It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
Clearly I don't remember.
I have my mom's memory. It's a curse.
Okay.
But yeah, that's kind of what I remember anyways. So.
Yeah, so then this is a very long explanation of how we met, just so you know.
This is what the people want.
And then I think, you were just there for another year, and we hung out those next 2 semesters while you were still there before you went back home. And then we were long distance, because I had another 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I dropped out because that's what I'm good at when it comes to school. So I dropped out, came home, became a plumber. You stayed, got your degree, and we all lived happily ever after. Yeah,
so I mean, at that point, we were basically long distance for the next... till we got married. So for 3 + 1 is 4 years.
For anybody beginning or in the middle of that, hang in there.
Yeah.
It'll be worth it because you'll be good at communicating. And I think that's something.
It's worth it if it's the right person.
Yeah, right. But if it's not, you're not going to make it. So
Yeah.
you're not going to have to worry about it. You're not going to have to worry about being long distance with the wrong person because that'll last about 2 weeks. Like.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes some commitment.
Yeah. The wrong
That's for
person
sure.
is not going to hang around. It's tough.
It is tough.
But I think it's got perks, you know. Your communication gets better because it's all you have. But it's got its downsides too. I mean,
Right.
it's you all of a sudden are living with somebody for the first time ever, and it's, you know, hello.
Yeah.
It's a wake up call.
Well, and it's not like, you know, we were both working. You know, it's not like we could just drop everything and see each other every weekend. I mean, we still lived 6 hours apart. So I don't necessarily remember how many times we saw each other, maybe every few months.
You didn't come down to me much, but that's because I wouldn't let you. But I drove up to see you as much as I could, you know, realistically. But I remember, I mean, it was every couple months, though. I mean, there'd be 4 or 5 months in between sometimes.
Yeah. I was in my first nursing job, too, so it's not like I had all this PTO I could blow.
Right, I could get off easier than you could.
Yeah.
I've always been able to with my job. It's just easier, so. But, yeah, so we get married. Mm-hmm. Everything's terrible and great all at the same time. I mean, it was hard. First couple of years are hard, you know. We went through a lot of hard stuff. I had a lot of problems, and we had to work through them, and So.
Well, I think it was a huge, again, learning curve. I mean, I was moving away from my family, which, I mean, I had been in school for 5 years in Florida, so that wasn't completely different, but at the same time it was, because I knew I could always come back home, where this was like, you're moving away to like have your own family, which is kind of a weird feeling. At least it was for me. And then, I mean, I was moving there and I didn't really know anybody, like friends-wise. So that can be intimidating, making friends as an adult out of college.
God is good. We made some of the best friends ever.
Yeah, we did.
Just core people that we still visit when we go back, and really amazing people. Mm-hmm. I mean, I brought some really good friends out of that. So
and started a new job, which again is not easy either.
No, it sucks.
You know, just learning the ropes of that. So there was a lot of change for us in that first year of marriage. Besides being married
in general in our marriage, like we've had some jumps, you know. And we did it all over again when we came here, and I think the cool part through all of it is just to see how God has just laid brick by brick every step of it. Like, that it's been too easy. Like, I mean, we're obviously at a point now where we're a little frustrated with the housing market and stuff like that, but it's not that God's not laying bricks. It's just the bricks are expensive and you gotta have money for them. But, you know, what you did there. I mean, even think about Ohio. Like, your job was perfect. Like, it was great. And, you know, my job sucked, but it was good enough. But, like, you know, place to live worked out. Great friends worked out. And we just up and move everything here. I find a dream job. You find a great job. Like, housing, you know, great apartment. Like, everything was so easy. Like, it just provided itself in the timing. Like, getting into this place that had a huge wait list. Like, everything was just... Right. You can't deny seeing his hand in everything, which was just awesome through all of that. So, that's great. But, so that's probably enough about the past. I think, I mean, it's just fun to talk about. I just wanted to hear your perspective on some of it because it's fun. But I think, you know, everybody I have on the podcast, there's obviously a lot going on in this podcast, hunting stuff and fitness stuff, but I think mental health stuff is something that has become important to me that never used to be, and it's never important to anybody until you struggle with it. But that being said, I think you have a lot to give when it comes to mental health because it's something you've struggled with and something that I think we have had to learn together on the fly, in the trenches, as you like to say, which I think only made us more incredibly strong. But I think, circling back to Kaylee's question a little bit about postpartum stuff, um, let's talk about probably the hardest time in your life, potentially. I don't know if you would agree with that statement, but
Yeah, I think I would.
probably the toughest thing you've went through, and definitely the toughest thing we've went through together. I just think that there is millions of women out there who may never hear this or may hear this that can be. We talked the whole time through the struggle about the day we got to look back and talk about it from a place just hoping it would change somebody else's life and make their situation better. And at that time, I had no plans for a podcast. I had no plans of any of this, which is kind of crazy. And now just sitting here realizing that we had that conversation, like imagine how cool it's going to be to talk about that someday.
Right.
And someday's here. So I think it's important to talk about. So this part you have to take over and walk us through because it's your story. So let's talk about it. We get pregnant, have a good pregnancy with Sadie, have the most amazing little dynamite, hell on wheels firecracker of a daughter that's born, and then everything goes wrong.
I mean, that's a very broad brushy statement.
That is I don't know the right word, but
I wouldn't say everything. Yeah, no. Honestly, I don't remember. A lot of that is very blurry for me. So back up, like, because when I first found out I was pregnant, I was in like a season of anxiety, I would say.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the reasons I took a pregnancy test, because I couldn't figure out why I couldn't calm down. And there was like really no explanation for it. Like there wasn't anything in my life that seemed to trigger such a severe reaction. And I was pregnant, so I kind of chalked it up to that it was probably just hormones. And it was rough for like about a month, I would say, to where I was doing my best to go to work and do my job well and come home. And that's about all I could do. And then, through pregnancy, it got a lot better. And then, had Sadie. We moved here. And then, at some point, I can't really say. It came in waves, the postpartum anxiety. And I would say I had more anxiety than depression. I know for some women it's both. And I'm not saying I never had depression, because I think there can also be an element of that. But I started just feeling super on edge, and I didn't know what was happening to me. And I had never been quite at this level. I think looking back, hindsight is 20/20, and knowing what I know now, I think I did have some anxiety in college that I just didn't have a name for at the time.
Definitely.
And like now I know, like, I would have panic attacks in school, and I didn't know at the time that's what it was.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, truth be told, I think growing up for us both, like, mental health wasn't really a huge conversation just in our circles.
No.
So, like, I wasn't maybe equipped to really diagnose that for myself, I guess. But so fast forward, here I am with a new baby, and we had just moved here, and I just remember feeling like super anxious. And there was, no real reason. I mean, I had just had a child, and I think, again, looking back, there was a lot of stressors, a lot of changes, job change, state change, family changes. And all that aside, you're dealing with all of the hormones that are trying to re-regulate. And again, this was my first time having a baby, so I had never experienced this before. So I decided to bite the bullet and talk to a therapist, which I felt was a big step for me. Because I think at the time you were kind of against it.
Yeah, I was an asshole.
I don't think that necessarily. I think you were just
Closed-minded.
maybe closed-minded. And to be fair, we didn't really have experience with this.
Yeah.
So I think it was all very unknown. So I didn't really have any other answers or know what else to do. So our church we were going to at the time was a lot of their staff, and their recommendations was for this place, I don't know, 20 minutes from us. So
New Life?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. New Life, yeah.
Shout
I
out.
remember, I think I would went on their website and was scouring for all their bios, trying to find somebody who I would align with, or that was specialized in postpartum, anxiety. And I found a lady who I still see to this day. So that was Sadie's 3.5, so probably 3 years ago, maybe a little more, or a little less than that. So I started going to see her, which I think was super instrumental in helping me gain a little bit of validity, I think, in what I was experiencing. Because, again, with all these hormones, you just don't, you think you're going insane. I mean, truly. You've never felt this before. You nothing you do calms you down. There's no amount of essential oil or Epsom salt baths or walks or anything that will make this feeling calm down. And then it just builds on itself. So to the point to where I remember waking up in the night and I was having a panic attack, and it was terrifying. Truly terrifying. You feel like you're dying. And then it definitely, I want to say, I can't remember, maybe, was it 1.5 years ago that it was the worst? Where it started after, I think it was.
Yeah, it was your 30th birthday.
It was right before I turned 30.
It was right around that time.
It was the end of October that it started. I think because it started when I came back from my girls' trip.
Correct. Yep.
I was in Vermont with 3 of my best friends, and I came home, and it just tanked after that. And Sadie at that point was almost 2.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, I was is this really postpartum still? Because she's about to be 2 years old. It's not like I'm newly postpartum anymore. But I guess in the end, does it really matter? Probably not. Right. It's just the fact that this is what I'm experiencing now. So I was seeing my therapist, which again was very helpful for me, very validating. She gave me a lot of tools and resources to use. But it just kind of kept getting worse and worse. And I think by probably by December, it was it got to the point where I couldn't eat. I didn't have
you weren't
an appetite.
Well at all.
I was losing weight.
Yeah.
Which was very scary because, again, for me, with my job, I see a lot of people in a mental health crisis, and here I was pretty much experiencing one myself while trying to still function as a wife, a mom, and a nurse, But I knew at that point when I was losing all that weight and I couldn't eat because I didn't have an appetite. I just couldn't eat. I think I went almost 2 weeks without having a full meal. I was just grazing, really.
Yeah.
Which, again, don't recommend.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what else to do. Like, I was just miserable. And it just felt like there was no way. I was like, is this just my life now? You know, I couldn't imagine having another child if this is how it's going to go.
Right.
You know, I couldn't imagine, I guess, a way out of it, really. And I, saw my doctor, which, I have thoughts. I think that I don't know, conventional medicine can have its place for sure, 100%. I mean, I work in the healthcare system, so I get it. But I don't think it's the end all be all. And I think she did the best she could with me at the time. Didn't always feel super understood when I saw her. I felt like she just wanted to slap a prescription on me and send me on my way, and that's what she did. And at the time, I was pretty desperate to try anything, so I tried a couple different anti-anxiety medications, which I wasn't thrilled about, and I think that was like a stigma I had to surrender to try something, because at the time, like, nothing was really helping me, and I couldn't stay where I was, so I was desperate to try anything. So I did what she recommended. And I tried, I think, 2 different ones, and by the time I think I was on and then back off of them was maybe 6 months. And looking back, did it help me? Was it the medicine, or was it just time, or was it just my hormones, or was it the therapy? I think there were so many things I was doing to try to help myself and to kind of get me through that low. It was the lowest I'd ever felt in my entire life. And it was terrifying. And I had all these ideas in my mind that my 30th birthday was going to be the best time of my life. And it was the absolute worst.
Yeah, that's rough.
And, I mean, from the outside looking in, I had everything I could have wanted, right? Like a beautiful family, a job, a place to live, 3 minutes from my parents. Like, I was where I wanted to be. This was everything I wanted. And I couldn't explain why I was feeling so anxious. So I would say I started coming off the meds, I think, so that was in December of that year. And then by the following, maybe April or May, I was like tapering off. And I think that, it's not that my anxiety was cured per se. I think I still experience anxiety. But I will say, since then, it has gotten a lot better. And do I always have a reason or an explanation for that? No. And I think that, is the fear there that it will come back again? Yes. Which I think is natural.
It's a reasonable fear.
Because, number one, it was really scary. Yeah. And so your natural instinct is to prevent that from ever happening again. So you're like, anything I can do, which again is like the anxiety talking, because it's trying to protect you from anything that can harm you. So, in my mind, if there's anything I can do to prevent this from happening again, like, name it and I'll do it. Mm-hmm. But that's not really how it works. I think that through that, it taught me a lot. That, number one, that I can get through it, which is a realization that in the moment that you don't feel, because you're so desperate to just get out of it. And when it lasts for so long, I think that particular episode where I was just feeling so horrible for so many days and weeks and months, it was like 6 months, I would say.
Yeah.
And I knew it was hard on you because you couldn't fix it. Like, there was nothing anyone could do to, like, fix it. I couldn't even fix it.
It was tough.
You know, and here I am trying to function, and I barely could.
Yeah.
You know? But I would say you were very present and definitely like a rock for me while I was going through it. Reminding me that, you know, number one, that I'll make it out and it'll be okay and that I can do it. And, you know, God was with us and He was. And, you know, we did have community. We had a church. And even just like being in church, I think helped us too. You know, like
sure.
being surrounded by like worship and people that are reminding you of the truth, you know, even when you know it, just people telling you that what the truth is.
Right.
You know, I would snap my friend Holly all the time, and she was so constant for me during that because I just, yeah, it was rough. I mean, and then you're scared of everything. You're scared of everything going wrong. You're scared of every worst case scenario possible.
Everything's a trigger.
Everything
There's
is
so
triggering.
many triggers, yeah.
You know, and so, and it's just, for me, a lot of it was very physical symptoms. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't just a mental game for me. That was part of it. But I had experienced so many physical symptoms.
Yeah.
Where, again, like the loss of appetite, the losing weight, the nervous system, like on edge. So, like, I just felt like I could literally crawl out of my skin.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I remember telling you that, like, I could literally crawl out of my skin right now. And I will say, I think it just teaches you, like, perseverance through a difficult time that doesn't just magically fix itself overnight. Mm-hmm. You know, like I had to walk through that for 6 solid months of pretty much torture. Yeah. Every day. You know, I would dread the nights because I didn't know that I would sleep, because then it got to the point where I wasn't sleeping. Yeah. So then I was worried I was going to turn into a crazy person because I couldn't sleep.
Gotta sleep.
So not only was the days miserable, but now I can't even sleep at night, which then makes your days even worse because now you're not sleeping on top of it.
Your brain's not functioning right because it's not, you're not sleeping, you know.
Right. So then again, I had to like submit to the idea of taking a sleeping pill from the doctor so that I could actually sleep at night to try to manage the days, which is a lot of swallowing of pride. A very humbling experience. Knowing that you have to accept help in certain ways that you never thought you would.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyway, I think that postpartum anxiety / anxiety in general is a very real thing, and I can definitely empathize in a whole new way than I ever have before, having been through it. So, yeah.
So, if... No, that's why we're here. So, if I had postpartum anxiety and I was going to ask you, what are a couple tools now that you have in your toolbox? You know, because like you said, the scary part is it could come back. Mm-hmm. Whether it's postpartum anxiety or just anxiety, because they're both a problem. It can come back at any point, and there's really nothing you can do to stop it, but now you feel like you have tools in your toolbox to combat it. So if I was someone struggling with anxiety or a woman with postpartum anxiety, and I said, Cassie, what are the tools that you've learned to carry with you now or to use that will at least help me ward it off a little, or at least be a little bit more confident going through it this time, because I feel like you are, what would those things be? At least one or two, that you feel like today you have that you didn't have the year you went through that.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say therapy is a huge benefit, and I know it can be a little taboo and people get a little freaked out by that. But honestly, I wish I would have started sooner.
Yeah.
And obviously, finding the right therapist may take a few tries. Like for some people,
probably don't hit it on the first like you did.
That's not everybody cool. Does.
Yeah.
And I think who counsels you, like for me, I wanted someone who was faith-based so that I knew in my most vulnerable, I was still getting, counseled on things that mattered to me and I valued my faith and that they weren't leading me away from that.
Sure.
While I was vulnerable,
yeah,
right? So there was multiple facets that I wanted covered. So anxiety and faith-based counseling pointing me back to the truth, right? So that was huge for me. So I wish I would have started that sooner. I think that's a huge one. And I think another one, it's not just mental, it's physical. So don't ignore the body, right? Don't ignore what you're eating, how you're sleeping, your exercise, like being outside. Like, do I think any one of those things are the answer? No, but I think they all work in tandem to help support you mentally.
For sure.
So that's a huge one, which I think now that I'm having a baby in the summer this time, I'm hoping will be better because I had Sadie in November, when I had her. So we have long Wisconsin winters, so it's not nice until May. So I was, in the winter of the beginning of postpartum with her for basically 6 months.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's one thing I'm really going to try to prioritize this time is being outside a lot more this summer. And then I think another thing I would say is just having someone you can talk to, whether it's not necessarily your therapist, but just like someone you can just call or text or whatever, who maybe has been through it before and can relate. Because anxiety has a way of making you feel very isolated and lying to you. So a lot of it happens in your mind, right? So even just talking to you, which I know you've never had a baby, but saying it out loud, hey, I'm really worried about this. Yeah. I'm worried this is going to happen. I know it's irrational. I know it's not going to happen.
Intrusive thoughts.
But I'm really scared it's going to happen. And it's caught in my brain and I can't get it to go away. And I think even for that, just saying it to you and knowing someone else on the planet knows what I'm thinking,
sure,
made it feel less scary.
Yeah.
So it took some of the power away from it.
Yeah.
Because it was tormenting me in my own mind. But then being able to say it out loud, knowing that you're not going to freak out at me because whatever I'm worried about, it feels really scary.
Right.
But knowing I can tell you, you're going to be a safe place for me and you're not going to think I'm insane.
Right.
And you're going to remind me that it is irrational.
Right.
And that's not real.
Right.
And it's going to go away.
Yeah.
I
feel like it's a point where I want to insert a little cliff note for guys out there. I don't know a lot, but if you are a guy who has a wife who is dealing with this, or whatever, vice versa, but specifically speaking to men like me who don't always understand things and are bad at saying the wrong things at the right times. In those moments when you have your wife who is telling you an intrusive thought that is off the wall, and just, it's not rude to say, because they're off the wall. Some of them are just absolutely crazy, because that's part of it. It is extremely important to not deal with, like, don't waste all your time telling her how crazy the thought is. You have to focus. I think what worked for you was just asking you what's the truth, instead of being like, that's crazy, and I'm sure that's what I did at first. That's crazy. You're not crazy. That's just a crazy thought. How could you even think that? Is what I always said at first. And I think that I had to learn to get away from how could you even think that, and get to what's the truth. In this situation, what is the truth? And instead of trying to convince you that you're not crazy, because you can't do that always to a person who has anxiety, it's a waste of time sometimes. Instead of trying to convince you you're not crazy, remind you of what the truth is. What do we know about you? What do we know about God? And it always came back to that. What do we know about God? What do we know about God's promises? And what do we know about our relationship, or about you as a mom, or whatever, So, cliff note, if you're a guy who struggles with that, try not to just tell her she's not crazy. I mean, tell her that too, but
yeah, for sure. Because I think, like I said, when you're experiencing such a high level of anxiety, everything is triggering and everything feels scary. So I felt scared to be home with Sadie by myself. I felt scared to, go to work. Was I going to screw up at work? I felt scared to sleep at night because when I was going to have a panic attack, I felt scared. Everything felt scary.
Yeah.
So nothing felt safe.
Right.
So definitely, like, having someone who can talk you down and just, not like they're going to fix it, but just be with you in it and be that steady, constant of, like you said, what's the truth? Where have you been? Where are we going? God, what is God's will or plan in this for us? Even though we can't necessarily explain it or understand it, what does Scripture remind us of? He doesn't want us to live like this. He is with us. He will protect us. In the world, you will have trouble, but He has overcome the world, right? So constantly reminding myself of Scripture, like, yep, I am living in a world that is tainted, and I'm going to have struggles, and this is my thorn in the flesh. Some people have addiction issues. Some people have, whatever.
Right.
My thorn in the flesh, my weakness is anxiety. And I can't always explain why. I wish it wasn't, but it is. And so now I'm just learning how to navigate it and keep it in its place, going forward. So.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. It's not always, boy, did it take me a long time to learn this. It's not always about eliminating something and smashing it into oblivion,
Right.
as much as it is about becoming mature and, I guess, equipped enough to just live with it in a healthy way. Like, you can't always eliminate a bad thing completely.
Right.
Sometimes you have to learn to coexist with it a little bit.
And again, like, a level of anxiety is healthy, right? Like,
yeah.
It's meant to keep you safe, but when it's operating at too high of a level, obviously that's a different story. So it's learning how to navigate that.
It's the smoke alarm theory, right? From John Deloney. Anxiety, and I might misquote him, I'll try not to, but anxiety is not, so if your house is on fire, the smoke alarm is anxiety. And it's telling you that your house is on fire, and I feel like my issue with medicine, modern medicine, is they're trying to shut off the smoke alarm. They're trying to pull the batteries out of it or put different batteries in it and push all the buttons. They're just trying to get the smoke alarm to shut off instead of saying, hey, genius, your house is on fire. Put out the fire and the smoke alarm will go off. So your hormones are out of whack. Your house is on fire. You're having trouble with your husband. Your house is on fire. You're not being validated as a good mom or wife. Your house is on fire. Like, put out the fire instead of just trying to shut off my smoke alarm.
Right.
And then that's my problem with modern medicine is not all of them, but so many of them are just like trying to shut you up or trying to put a lid on you or get you to just be this bump on a log gray person. And it's like, that's not how I was meant to live. I just need to put out my fire.
Yeah.
And then the alarm will shut off, you know? And I remember Brendan telling me that, you know, he's the one who told me that originally when you were going through this and when he was trying to give me advice on how the heck I was supposed to help you. And that really made it make sense for me. And then I know that helped me when I started struggling down the road in my own ways, was knowing that already now going into it, that, excuse me, this isn't this isn't me just being broken as a person or busted or like my house is on fire.
Yeah.
So now I think it helped me get through it quicker than I would have because I knew to just go straight, like, just go find the fire. Don't worry about the symptoms. Just live with them for now. Just, you know, I've said it in the first podcast, like, get comfortable in the discomfort a little bit. Like, learn to live in this for a minute while you just go put out the fire instead of, you know, just trying to shut off the alarm. But
yeah. And again, I think like certain people's experience with medicine, you know, is different.
Yeah, it works great for some people, you know.
And I think it depends on the person and kind of like what do you want in the end, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, what do you want life to look like?
Right. And for me personally, I didn't want to be on the medicine long term. So for me, I had maybe a different approach than someone else would. But I think also it can have its place, and I think at the time we did need it. To just bring
got us through.
To just be able to manage my symptoms,
eat
and sleep. Like the sleeping pills did amazing for me.
Oh yeah,
you know, like, am I taking them anymore? No, but at the time, it was like just what I needed because I had to sleep, I had to work, I had to be a mom, you know. So anyway,
yeah. Well, that's good. I think it's cool that we got to have that conversation now. You know, a year or two after manifesting, wanting to someday. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Another thing, quick, we'll get on a lighter note. Thank you for talking about that. I appreciate it. This is a hunting podcast, so I'm going to drag you into hunting somehow here because you married a bow hunter and an addict. Talk about addictions. So, as a wife of one of the greatest bow hunters to ever walk the face of the earth, I think something that might be a little helpful quickly here for the ladies out there who are married to addicts like me and Warner and all the others. Any suggestions for being married to someone who is addicted to bow hunting when that time of year rolls around? What are your suggestions to help a couple or a mama through that? Because it can be tough. So I guess how I'm wording this is, how do you learn to be a submissive, loving wife and let your husband hunt every day of the season without complaining about it? Go.
Well, I don't think I can speak to that. Yes. That's a great question. I think that for me, it's understanding that this is a passion of yours and it's really important to you and you put a lot of time and effort into it. And so it means a lot to you and it's like an outlet. So trying to remember that and be supportive of that is something that I want to do because I know it makes you really happy. I'm not going to say like when you hunt every weekend, it's easy. You being gone every weekend, that's hard. But again, I think for every family, it's different what that looks like. Healthy priorities and boundaries. Keeping hunting where it belongs, but also like understanding that it does like certain seasons. It's like just a certain time of the year. So,
Right.
It's not like every weekend all year this is what you're doing, but it's like a certain season for X amount of weeks. This is, the time.
September to December.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess it just comes down to being supportive of your spouse in something that they enjoy and understanding that you may not understand or like it, but I guess you don't have to. You can still allow them to do something they love and enjoy as long as, like your family's not suffering for it.
Right.
And I think just being intentional even more with family time during that season. So like you're going to be gone, okay, every Saturday from this time to this time. So it's going to affect us in the sense of like, okay, we're just facts not going to have as much time as we normally do together. So how are we going to kind of work through that? Because Sadie needs your attention. I need time to spend with you as well, and it's important. Right. And Sundays are usually kind of busy because of church and whatever else. So I think that's something that we will probably even try harder maybe this year to keep in mind is like, okay, let's plan some things, put some things on the calendar where we're more intentional, like maybe during the week. Right.
Which this week's going to be an absolute cluster anyways. Or this week, I'm sorry. This year is going to be a nightmare for me anyways. So I don't know what it's going to look like with different work schedules for you and stuff. But
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I ask you that question. You are very supportive. And last year, I think the first year, you were less supportive and struggled with it more. Last year, you were awesome. I mean, I hunted more last year than I've ever hunted, and you were very supportive. So you do a great job with it. So I'm not saying you have room for improvement, but there's a lot of me's out there who have a lot of yous out there. So any advice, I'm sure, is welcome. So, yeah, so like, right around the corner, babe. Season's right around the corner.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about that. And then I guess something we'll wrap up with is the same question I'm going to ask everybody. And I purposely, which I know it pissed you off because you're a planner, so this is good for you. But I don't like to give the guests the questions that I'm going to ask because I don't want them to think about it. I want your raw answer. When you're on the spot and being recorded or whatever is when you're going to tell your answer. Like if you have time to doctor it at home and take out all the sharp edges, that sucks. I want the sharp edges. So that's why I didn't tell you any of these. But this is the same question. So everybody's going to pick up on this going through it and they're going to start thinking of their answer. So don't cheat. But the vital question. So for the Vital Pursuit podcast, we have a vital question that we ask every guest at the end. And that question is, how do you define success for you in your life? And
like for me personally?
For you personally. And that's a clarification I made to Tommy as well. Not like success of your family, like just you. And now your family being happy could be part of it, but like your success, not the success of those around you. Because I find when you ask people that, a lot of people just start rattling off like a lot of things about other people, which is fine. Like you can find success in other people being happy, but like if you strip all that away, just you, how do you define success for your life? It's a tough question. Trust me, been wrestling with it for years.
I think I would So, like we mentioned before, I am an ER nurse, so I've been doing that the last 8 years. I think that my job has a way of very acutely reminding me of the brevity of life and how fast life can change. Whether you're here 1 minute and gone the next, or you're here 1 minute functioning completely normal, and the next you are not forever.
You know the truth.
So when I think about me being successful, I don't know, it's a little uncomfortable, I guess, to use that word. I guess, like you said, you strip it down to like what really matters and what in the end is really important to me as like a person and what I'm doing in my life. And I think, you know, going back to like why I'm here on this earth is, obviously was put on this earth for a reason. So making sure that I'm living my life as a Christian in an honorable way, which is, a work in progress. Let me tell you.
Heard that.
But I mean, in all seriousness, in the end, what is going to matter?
Right.
That. Right? It doesn't matter, how many kids I have or.
Well, that probably matters because relationships.
Well, yeah, but like amount or, what I do for a living.
God's
or
not going to be like, you didn't have enough kids.
Right. So, yes, I take my friendships really seriously. I take my relationships with, my family very seriously. I take my kids seriously. I take my job very seriously.
Serious job.
So, all of those things are very important to me. But in the end, I know what actually matters. And it's, being a good Christian, being a human being that is kind and empathetic. I mean, I think I am an empath anyway.
For sure.
And again, I think what I do for a living just reminds me how important it is because I see the spectrum, both ends of the spectrum, the good and the very hard and evil and bad and horrific and earth-shattering spectrums. And to have empathy for people in their most horrific, vulnerable places is, if I can do that and I can make a difference in someone in their worst moment, I think that to me is like success.
Yeah.
Where somehow God can give me the grace, the emotional stamina and capability to meet someone where they're at on the worst day of their life and somehow make it a little better.
Mm.
And that may sound super dramatic, but it is kind of what I do.
It's kind of what you do.
For a living.
It's kind of what you do.
And I think it is easy to get burnout and it is easy to be judgy.
Yep.
Be critical of just what you get at face value.
Right.
Get frustrated easily with behavior and whatever else. But, to be reminded that all behavior has meaning. There's always two sides to every story. And try to remind myself of that. Even when what I'm being shown or faced with isn't easy to take in. So, I guess, long story short, that's success to me, is making sure I'm, I guess, living out the Christian life the way God would have me to, which again, I don't want to sound like the super Christian because I'm definitely not. And I think the older you get, the more you realize you don't know.
Mm.
And maybe sometimes feel a little shame and like, yeah, I grew up in this Christian home and was in church all my life. And like, I probably should be doing better at X, Y, and Z or whatever. But I don't know. I feel like the older I get, the less. And maybe that's the beauty of it. Like, you're just learning. But that, and then I think being able to empathize with people in different situations well. So.
Yeah. It's good. It's good. I already knew your answer, but.
You did?
Yeah, I know you. Married you.
Wow.
My best friend. All right, babe. Thank you for taking time out of your night and your exhaustion before you have this baby.
Yes.
Do this with me. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Thanks for following me on the latest of my adventures in life, which is the podcast and YouTube channel and everything.
Which is funny because I'm pretty sure like a few years ago when you were talking about doing a YouTube channel, I was like, there is no way I'm allowing this. I was like, I just remember thinking like, I'm not married to a YouTuber. Like,
but you're still not married to a YouTuber, just to clarify. I'm not that good at it.
Well, at least you have a YouTube channel.
I mean, it's going pretty good. It could be going worse.
Could be.
There's 38 people who think I'm interesting. Looking for 100. Shout out. Fit the hunt. Go subscribe.
But yeah, life's crazy.
It's a crazy freaking ride. I'm glad you're in the same seat with me. We're having a good time. I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody else, for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one, y'all. Be good. We'll see you. Bye.
Bye.